Let us begin in Hamburg, Germany, where the G20 summit is halfway done through day one. President Moon Jae-in is also there with the leaders of other G20 economies. Let's go to our Cheongwade correspondent Moon Connyoung, who has been traveling with the president. Connyoung, what's the latest from over there? I hear there's been a lot of noise before the event itself.
It sure has been, but Daniel, believe it or not, despite all the hiccups leading up to this day, and like you said, the skirmishes between police and violent protesters in this port city overnight and earlier this morning, South Korean President Moon Jae-in, U.S. President Donald Trump, Chinese President Xi Jinping, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, and other leaders of the group of 20 global economic powers have managed to get together, along with the German Chancellor here for a two-day summit in Hamburg. Now, meeting under the theme of shaping an interconnected world, the leaders have just wrapped up their morning retreat session. It was a chance for the leaders to discuss openly and freely without the presence of media on the topic of terrorism. Well, fighting terrorism, however, is one of the least contentious subjects on the agenda this year, with issues like global trade and climate change taking center stage, and unanticipated topics like North Korea's continued provocations, especially one of late, a ballistic missile with a range capable of flying one continent to another. Now, that's how they've agreed to define it, stealing the thunder here at the Hamburg summit. Daniel?
Well, it's going to be a very speedy session. Well, time is of the essence. It's a debut for President Moon Jae-in in the multilateral forum. Could you pinpoint us to some of the sessions, particularly the Korean leader will be addressing in the G20?
Absolutely. South Korean President Moon Jae-in made his debut on the multilateral diplomacy stage of one, the G20 retreat that I just talked about, with a 2-hour-long behind-the-curtain retreat on the topic of terrorism. Now, President Moon defined terrorism and violent radicalism as grave threat to world peace and security. Here, he also brought up the issue of North Korea during the retreat, saying North Korea's nuclear and missile provocations pose a serious challenge to world peace and international order, and therefore, absolutely critical is the international community's close cooperation in dealing with the North. Now, Mr. Moon proposed that the leaders of the G20 work together in putting stronger sanctions and pressure North Korea, and that would include the adoption of a new UN Security Council resolution to bring North Korea to the negotiations table for swift denuclearization of the North. Now, Mr. Moon's primary event of the day will be the working luncheon in session one, which is about to get underway as we speak. Now, here, the newly elected South Korean leader will lead the discussions by introducing his government's new economic paradigm of people-centered fair economy and growth led by job creation and innovation. Also leading the discussion today during this session will be U.S. President Donald Trump, Chinese President Xi Jinping, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, among others. Of course, Daniel, there's much more on the South Korean leaders' schedule for the next 2 days of the G20 summit. That goes for the rest of the global leaders here in Hamburg, and I'll be sure to keep you posted all throughout. Daniel.
All right, Connyoung, thank you so much for being out there for us. We'll be turning to you for more updates.